I think they were saying statistically there's over 95,000 from what I heard.
I can't even, it's conversation where you start crying.
We're at the point that we sometimes get posts and see pictures where we literally sit and we both of us shed a tear just because of how horrible the situations are.
For kids with disabilities, it's very bad. They're being treated like they're just not wanted by anybody. We recently saw a picture of the food that they give in a specific orphanage, and they're eating out of plates that
like the metal bowls that they give in the jails,
And the food on a plate is, I wouldn't feed it to my dogs. It's just not appealing. It doesn't look very nutritious. It doesn't, and that's what they see on a daily basis. They're being mistreated. There's a lot of donations that are being taken away through the back door, especially food-wise. So let's say yogurts are being donated, and then we've talked to Marta, and
sometimes kids don't even see those.
They've never seen a yogurt in their life. They've never ate a banana in their life. They've never seen a chicken in their life. So they never tried. Like, this is, I don't know how you go through life and you're 14 and you've never tried chicken.
And so we've also been, as we've been growing through this process, we've started seeing some of the really, people who take initiative in Ukraine and who take this upon themselves to start making the system change, because it is I think it's a very, long process of making sure that the culture within not only the orphanages, but how the society perceives, kids with disabilities or kids who are born with something that maybe the parents don't really like or appreciate, and parents just kind of, I think parents are also instigated to sometimes give up those kids. We've heard, again, this is something, we both come from Ukraine, but we've never been exposed to it from that perspective. But through the stories, we've heard that doctors are encouraging and suggesting for parents to give up their kids in the hospitals because, that's the realities. And, the kid will have a better life. But that's not, we've lived in Canada now for long enough where that's not acceptable to us anymore. That's not the social standard here. And why is it all of a sudden still acceptable there? So we've tried to be a little bit of an agent of change as well, as much as we can from our avenues and our networks, and trying to not only help through donations, but now start helping through what can we do more? Who can we link with that can be that change agent, either here in Canada or in Ukraine or elsewhere, that can inspire some of those things? So
we would love to adopt. And we have a kid. We would love to adopt. There is, but the problem is there's a huge amount of paperwork. It takes forever, and it costs. The cost of adopting from Ukraine is between $10,000 to $20,000.
From Ukrainian side. And I think in reality, this is from what we've heard. We've heard that it sometimes can be up to 2 or 3 years that it takes for someone to get, access to a child. And so we've had people, who are even non-Ukrainians come up to us and say, well, why don't just people, even the ones who can afford the $20,000, why can't they just adopt? And it's just because the reality is that it's not as easy of a process to just let go of that kid. It seems like somehow, because you have to understand, every kid in the orphanage has some kind of government money attached to the child as a pension or as support for the orphanage. So the more the orphanage receives, the more again, it's a system that's been kind of, I think, perpetually growing into a not well-functioning system from the orphanage side. And I think the problem
is that for a parent, even though they've given up their child, there's the whole process to go through to give up their child. There's a lot of parents whose kids are in orphanages for years, but they still count
as their parents. So unless the parents on paper signs the paper that I'm giving up my child officially, they're still considered their parents. So orphanage or an adoption agency cannot take any of those kids on.
And some of it, the last time I checked, there's only specific age you can adopt. So after 5 years and up, well, the 5 years that the child spends in the orphanage leaves quite a bit of mark. And I don't know, I just don't understand, why can't you adopt a little baby? Why do you have to wait 5 years for that child to be eligible to be adopted? It's just the process is so tedious and long, and expensive, that there's lots and lots of families, I'm sure, across Canada that would love to adopt a child from Ukraine, but it's unattainable at that moment.
At least from what we can hear and see.